Assalamu alaikum. My name is Professor Dr. Lashin Saad, a professor of physiology and internal medicine consultant. First, what is blood? Blood is a part of the extracellular fluid that circulate within the blood vessels. As we know, we can simply divide total body fluid into intracellular and extracellular fluid. The intracellular fluids represent the 2/3 of body fluids, and the extracellular fluid represents about 1/3. Blood is the main component of the extracellular fluid, and it circulates within the blood vessel. Looking at the blood volume, in the average, the blood volume is from 5 to 6 liters for the average person who weighs about 70 kilograms. However, this number is variable and depends on the body weight, and it equals about 80 milliliters for each kilogram. So that when there is a person who weighs about 100 kilograms, you expect that he has about 8 liters of blood. When he has 50 kilograms, he will have about 4 liters of blood. This is important to evaluate the risk of hemorrhage if present. What about the general function of blood? Speaking about the function of blood need too many lectures. However, we can summarize it in 4 main topics. First, blood is a major transport medium inside our body. Second, blood is important for hemostasis. Third, blood has an important homeostatic function inside our body. Fourth, it has a defensive function. Regarding the details, blood is a major transport medium inside our body. It transports everything. It transports gases from the lung to the tissues, carries oxygen from the lung to the tissues, and CO2 in the opposite direction. It carries the products of digestion and absorption from the lumen of the GIT to the liver and all body organs. It carries hormones from the sites of release to the site of action. Everything which you need to move from a site to another, it depends on blood. The second function is hemostasis. In the next lectures, we will discuss in detail the process of hemostasis and its applications. Hemostasis is a process by which bleeding stops whenever your vessels are injured. Whether this bleeding is seen on the body surface or within the body cavity. This process is complex and needs many steps, and it is vital for life, and we will discuss it in the next videos. The third function is homeostasis. We must differentiate between hemostasis and homeostasis. Homeostasis is maintenance of the biological balance, maintenance of the internal environment of the body constant despite continuous change, continuous challenge, whether inside or outside challenge. Maintenance of normal pH, normal blood pressure, normal body temperature, normal ions, normal electrolytes. All of these balances have to be maintained for decades of years because of strong mechanisms inside our body. All of these mechanisms depend on a common factor, which is the blood. The fourth function is the defense. Later we will discuss immunity, whether it is innate or acquired. We have too many mechanisms. The backbone of the immune system is blood cells, exactly the white blood cell. Let us speak about the composition of blood. Blood is a fluid tissue. It is a tissue, so it must be composed of cells and interstitial tissue. In blood, it is interstitial fluid because blood is a fluid tissue. Cells are the 3 basic types: RBCs, white blood cells, and platelets, and we will discuss them in detail in the coming lectures. Also the plasma, which represents about 55%, more than half of the blood. This is a blood fluid in which all blood cells are suspended. 90% of plasma is composed of water and 10% is composed of solids. Solids may be organic or inorganic. Organic substances, as you know, are substances which contain carbon ions like carbohydrate, lipids, and proteins, and they are synthesized in biology inside living cells. While inorganic substances are those lack carbon ion like minerals, and they are present whether inside the body or nature, in the river, in the mountain, in the sea, and so on. Regarding the composition of blood, we will concentrate on a main component of blood, which is plasma protein. Plasma proteins are biologically active substances that play various roles. Most of functions of blood are done by its main component, plasma protein. They form a large share of blood, about 7%, or we can say 7 grams% of blood is composed of plasma protein. Its members are so many. However, the most important items are albumin, globulins, fibrinogen, and prothrombin. But the actual count is unlimited because every day we hear of new types of plasma protein. However, in this stage of your study, you must concentrate on the basic types of plasma protein, which are albumin, globulins, prothrombin, and fibrinogen. Looking at this table, we can conclude the following facts. Albumin has a concentration of 3.5 to 5 gram%, and a molecular weight of 69 thousandths. And comparing these values with the other values of plasma protein, we will find that albumin represents about 60% of plasma protein. Too much amount, more than half of plasma protein. And its molecules are relatively smaller, so it has too many molecules. And this is the main point regarding blood osmolarity. So the main plasma protein that is essential for plasma osmolarity and osmosis is albumin because of too much molecule. Globulins have also a large share, 2.4 to 2.7 gram%. We say globulins because it has many types. Fibrinogen and prothrombin, a small share, but they are so essential because prothrombin is an enzyme that is essential for the process of blood coagulation. Together with it, the fibrinogen has an important role in the process of blood coagulation. Regarding the site of synthesis of plasma protein, all plasma proteins are synthesized inside the liver except gamma globulin. Gamma globulins are antibodies. Antibodies are not formed inside the liver, they are formed inside the lymphoid tissue. So we can summarize by one sentence. All plasma proteins are synthesized in the liver except gamma globulin, which is synthesized within the lymphoid tissue. Regarding the functions of plasma proteins, we speak here about the general functions without entering inside the details, which will be discussed later on. The first function is the regulation of blood osmolarity, and as we know, osmolarity depends on the number of molecules. So you can expect that the main player of plasma osmolarity is albumin, and osmolarity determines the process of osmosis, which controls the distribution of body fluids. So you can easily expect when the albumin concentration is reduced, whether due to decreased synthesis by liver disease or increased loss by renal disease, the process of osmosis will be disturbed and the fluids will accumulate in abnormal sites, like inside the peritoneal cavity in the liver disease, where patients complain of ascites, or under the skin in patients of chronic renal disease because of loss of albumin with urine. The second function is blood coagulation, and we will discuss it later in detail. The main players of blood coagulation are prothrombin and fibrinogen. The third function is blood viscosity. In the cardiovascular system, blood pressure depends on the volume of blood and the resistance to blood inside the vessels. The resistance depends on many factors. Of these factors, viscosity play an important role. So blood viscosity is a determinant of resistance, which is a determinant of blood pressure. Viscosity depends on two main factors inside our body. First, RBCs. Second, fibrinogen. The fourth function is control of capillary permeability. As we know, capillaries are so permeable structure because in between the endothelial cells, you find many pores, many openings, from which fluids inside the capillary may leak outside the vessel. However, most of these openings, most of these fenestrations are partially blocked by the plasma proteins, which limit their permeability, and you can easily expect when plasma proteins are reduced, whether in renal disease or liver disease, fluid leakage outside vessels will increase and cause fluid accumulation in abnormal sites, causing ascites or tissue edema. Number 5, defensive function. As we said, gamma globulins are antibodies and they are formed within the lymphoid tissue and they play an important role in acquired immunity, which will be later discussed in the coming lectures. Carrier function. Plasma proteins within blood work as vehicles which carry different substances. They are too many, moving everywhere, so small substances can attach their surface and move from one side to another. Carriage of different substances, whether ions, vitamins, hormones, is specific, so that every plasma protein carries specific substances. Moreover, this carriage can work as a sort of storage, so many substances can be stored on the surface of plasma protein, especially hormones, especially thyroid hormone, which are stored mainly on the surface of plasma protein. Thank you very much and see you in next videos.